I don't know in reality whether you can totally divorce yourself from any political considerations. You don't live in a vacuum, obviously. You have to be cognizant of what happens. But, when I look at things, I focus on doing the job, not running for it the next time. 'Cause, maybe I suffer from terminal Pollyannism. But you know what? I think if I've done a good job and people recognize that and I report back faithfully, they'll reelect me. And if I screw up, I'll either say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, and I'll fix it, and maybe they'll forgive me. Or, they'll give me credit when I've done something right. I think if I do my job, I have less to worry about running for my job. Some people get into these jobs and start running for it the next day.
Exactly.
I'd rather learn the job and do the job and have the people I serve say, he does the job. That's all that's the greatest compliment you can give me. Yeah. He does the job, and he does it well.
Yeah. Let's go back to the political situation. You're the only Republican I know, other than the Mayor Joseph Delfino of White Plains, who has won election head-to-head with the Democratic doomsday machine in White Plains. You are essentially the leader of the pack who should be listened to. How would you revive the moribund Republican Party?
Well, I think, and I mean this not as a put-down of the party of Lincoln, obviously. I'm honored to run with it and believe in the principles of it. But I think looking at this as a political strategist, let's say, taking myself out of the equation.
Let's do that.
What I think the party needs to do is, rather than seek out candidates who can self-fund, who we can mold into good candidates, I think we need to seek out candidates who are good candidates, who we then find ways to fund.
To fund later.
If you want good people in office, you got to start by getting good people. How they get funded is a whole nother story, but that's what the party as a basis and a backer of any political candidate is, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. So I think that it sounds like a small thing, but it's a very big flip in the philosophy.
I think that's a great flip in the philosophy because it is all about the money. And let's face it, it's often he with the biggest war chest wins.
Absolutely. And one other thing with that, if you look at partisan politics and you say, okay, you do run politically, but you must serve apolitically, and you do that in a partisan fashion, you go up there, which is what I try to do, make friends across the aisle. Any idiot can make friends with your friends, but making friends with your potential adversaries takes some work. When you do that, it pays off in spades because when I need something done, since I'm in a minority, I go to a majority member. I have majority members who are good friends of mine, and I'm honored to work with them, carrying my bills. Because you know what? They might not have gotten out to the floor for a vote as a Republican. That's the reality. But they will get out to the floor with someone's name on it. Like Ronald Reagan once said, it's amazing what you can do up here if you don't care who gets the credit.
Exactly.
So there are ways to get things done.
And that is the altruistic form of serving
but it's also,
the people.
I believe it's also the wisest way of looking at it. I don't think it's being naive.
No.
I think when you see that you get more done that way, you want to pursue, the method that works.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the rest of 2011. That's the year we're in, right? What will the legislature be doing the rest of the year? Do you expect to go back to Albany for any special sessions? And what do you expect them to involve?
Do I expect to go back? The answer is yes.
Yes.
I think one of the things we're going to have to vote on are the contracts for the major unions, and that's part and parcel of looking forward towards labor reform. As you know, the CSEA, and we voted on it, and it has not been voted on by the rank and file yet.
It hasn't been ratified yet.
But the CSEA accepted an unprecedented contract, and by the way, I take my hat off to them for this. 0, 0, 0, 2, and 2%. With additional contributions into both retirement and health care. As a union, my father was a labor leader, by the way, so I understand him and I sympathize with him. It's a gutsy move to say, you know what, this is not a ploy. When the state says we're out of money, we're really out of money. And they are now jumping on board and saying, okay, you know what, we're not throwing our rank and file to the dogs, but we recognize we all have to tighten our belt and we're willing to work cooperatively with government. The Public Employees Federation, the second largest union, has now come on board with this thing. I believe the others will. I think that's the first step, an unprecedented cooperation we've had with the unions. And I want to take my hat off to all of them, by the way, because I know that's a tough choice. As a labor leader, as well as a member to rank and file, to say, you know what, I recognize this, I'm a citizen, I'm going to do my part.
So actually, members of the unions now that approve this will be taking paying more for their benefits and less
They will.
and more into their pension. Isn't this the first that they will have paid into their pensions?
It depends upon which
Yeah,
union.
I
Some of them
see.
already do. I think the next thing in that step would be to go from, a defined benefit for the defined contribution plan. But that's a longer-term issue to deal with.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you know, when we're looking at long-term pension reform, we are looking at a potential Tier 6. We instituted Tier 5 a couple of years ago. Potentially, that's $20 billion, not million, billions of dollars in savings over the next 30 years. Tier 6 is projected to save us $90 billion more. So that's a total of $120 billion over 30 years moving forward.
Any indications of what Tier 6 would require?
It will probably require a larger contribution into both retirement, into medical care. It may extend retirement age. I don't know because I haven't seen a blueprint of it yet. And all those things, of course, are up for negotiation. So the reality is it's there on paper. The governor is working on it now, and we're all waiting to see what this is going to come out
Just
to
a
be.
reminder, we're doing this interview in late July. So, check for, we'll update this. We'll have updated this show if things change.
And I think it also bears in mind that the CSEA in Westchester County, which is large, are getting ready to negotiate a contract, as is the Westchester Medical Center, CSEA, and I think it was pretty courageous of what the state employees have done.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I mean, look, people slam the unions very much like, the administration has slammed big business. I'm sorry. Wall Street in many ways does contribute to the health of Main Street. So you can't paint everyone in business with the same broad brush.
Exactly.
We have healthy, vibrant businesses. We need them to be viable. And we can't over-regulate them to the point that they're out of business, okay? Well, and the same thing with the unions. Well, I mean,
perhaps they needed a little more regulation at certain times in the last 10 years.
You know what? Unquestionably. But you know what? You can't paint everyone with the same broad brush.
Certainly not.
There are good entities there relative to this. And as a result of it, those who are doing right should be complimented. Those who are doing wrong should be prosecuted. Okay? Well, the unions have also gotten the same bad rap. All the unions and all the rank and file people in those unions are not bad people.
Right.
Labor is the backbone of our nation. They built this country, with the sweat of their brow, and the strength of their back and hands. So let's not forget that the American worker is not our enemy either here.
Correct.
Right, just like the teachers are not our enemies either, who have taken a tremendous brunt of the criticism for education. But at any rate, do you feel that we are going to see a trickle-down effect to the local unions? Because we just saw that with the CSEA, for out of the goodness of their hearts, I guess, agreeing to no percent increase this year in White Plains and 2% the next 3 years. But do you think this is the leadership of the various unions in the state are telling the locals to kowtow here?
I can't speak about what the leadership of the unions are doing, but what I can say to you is that if it is a trend, and it is a trend unquestionably statewide for the major unions, I think that the smaller unions are going to be put in a position where they're between a rock and a hard place. It's like, hey, look, if 62,000, 64,000 CSEA employees, 100,000 PEF employees can do this, well, your 50 people or your 100 people shouldn't be held above them, to a standard that's not reasonable, because we've all got to tighten our belts. I mean, at the end of the day, look, we're neighbors first, New Yorkers second, and Americans always. And you know what? That's what people have to remember. We're in a fight. But you know what? We recovered this economy before. We'll recover it again. If everybody in Washington learns to play nice in the sandbox of government, and we continue to up in Albany as we started to do, you know what? There's light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's a train.
Yeah.
Speaking of playing nicely in the sandbox in Albany, Andrew Cuomo has come on board, has accomplished a lot in a pretty short period of time. What's his mojo that David Patterson never got?
Well, I mean, I got to know Governor Patterson a little bit towards the end of the time I was there, and I learned to respect him, I have to tell you. A lot of people said, "Oh, this guy's incompetent. He's this, he's that." And as usual, I listen politely and say thank you for the information, and then I make up my own decision based upon the facts.
Yeah, right.
Facts are an interesting thing, But the problem is he had been abandoned by his own party, and he said it. He literally said it to me face to face from where I'm standing to you, and that's a hard thing to deal with because the strength of his ability to govern is vested in his party, not just in himself, by the law and the Constitution. If they don't acquiesce to what he wants, he gets nowhere.
Exactly.
And at the end, what I found interesting, and it's a trend that you see now, is to be political for 1 second, where the Democrats had abandoned him, Republicans, because we were responsible, embraced him. And he said to us as a group one day, you guys are giving me more support than my own party is. And it was true. And we are doing this with Andrew Cuomo because it's not a political thing. He's the governor. He's the chief executive. I work for you. And if I'm going to work properly for you, I got to work with him.
Yeah. Tell me, what mojo does Larry Schwartz bring to the equation?
Well, what I'm hoping is, I know Larry Schwartz. I respect him. I know he worked in the Andy Spano administration here. I dealt
behind the scenes.
Yeah. I dealt with him while he was working for Governor Paterson. He was very effective there. He helped us out, as a matter of fact. So what I'm hoping is, from the standpoint of Westchester, maybe we collectively, all 7 of the assemblymen, our senators, and what have you, have a little bit of an entree to the governor via Larry.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the name of the game. Is everything is done by relationships. If you have credibility in relationship, and you have entree and access, you can get more done. Right. So I'm hoping that will continue to be the positive relationship it was at the end of the last part of the Patterson administration.
So the agenda, what are your agendas for your upcoming year?
I want to continue to work on short-term mandate relief. I think the $127 million we got was a drop in the bucket. That needs to be increased substantively so as not to be hurt by the tax cap. If you get both of them, we got the cap. Now we need the mandate relief that makes the cap, palatable.
Yeah.
So that's number one. I want to get rid of the MTA tax. That thing is a thorn in all our sides. It's a matter of principle. And look at ways of boosting our economy in the area and in working on the local issues. We just passed a bill here honoring Michael Perry up there, which I put in, and I'm honored for because, as you know, Detective Michael Perry died bravely as an officer in the line of duty here in White Plains. As a former member of the state police, I respect and I honor his service, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for all of us, and we're all heartbroken to lose him. So, anything I can do to honor those people who are local heroes is my pleasure.
Awesome.
So, listen, we have a minute to go. Is there something you'd like to say to the voters of the Assembly 89th District and the world?
Well, it's an honor to serve. I believe in public service. It's what I've done all my life. It's an honor to serve. I would hope that members of the community, the constituents I serve, will come to me, let me know what their issues are. If there's an issue we can work on for them, it's my pleasure. We've got an office here on New King Street in White Plains. The number is 914-686-7335. Someone will always be there to help them, and I'll call them back. I'm not somebody who has a problem with access to people. I work for you. It's not the other way around. So, and I work for all of you. So, it's an honor to serve them.
Well, Assemblyman Robert Castelli, thank you for being part of this 2-part interview. And I want to thank Nancy King for filling in for my partners, Peter Katz and Jim Benerofe, who are on assignment, and John Bailey saying good night, Robert Castelli. And
thank you for having me.
Good night.
Good to see you again, Nancy.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benerofe speaking.